I didn't realize how loud silence could be until the night I heard someone inside my house. It started out normal, almost boring. I had showered, made a quick dinner, and settled onto the couch with a blanket, and the kind of show you don't have to pay attention to. The house was dark except for the TV glow and a small lamp in the corner that always made the living room feel warm and safe. Outside it was windy, the kind of wind that presses against the windows and makes the trees scrape across the siding like fingernails. I remember checking my phone at 11:47 p.m. No missed calls, no messages, just the late night quiet. That's when I heard a soft noise from the kitchen, a small clink, like glass tapping glass. I muted the TV. The house fell into a deeper silence. I waited. Nothing. I told myself it was the wind, the fridge, the house settling, the 100 little noises buildings make when they're old and you're alone. I unmuted the show. Another sound, this time clearer, a gentle thud, like a cabinet door closing, not slamming, closing. My stomach tightened. I stared down the hallway that led to the kitchen. The hall was dark, too dark. That darkness didn't look like empty space. It looked like something you could step into and disappear. I muted the TV again. My thumb hovered over the volume, like sound itself was dangerous. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Not the creak of a single board. Not the pop of wood shifting. A pattern. 1, 2. Pause. 1, 2. Pause. Soft and careful. My body went cold in seconds. I stood up without thinking, the blanket sliding off my lap. I held my breath so hard my chest started to ache. I couldn't hear my show anymore. I couldn't hear the wind. I could only hear those slow footsteps moving somewhere beyond the hallway. The first thought that hit me was embarrassing. Maybe it's an animal. But no animal walks like that. No animal pauses like it's listening. I picked up my phone and quietly stood behind the couch, using it like a shield even though it was just a glowing rectangle. I didn't call 911 immediately. I know I should have. But my brain was stalling, searching for a reasonable explanation so it wouldn't have to accept the unreasonable one. Maybe I forgot to lock the back door. Maybe my neighbor came over for something. Maybe the footsteps stopped. Right there, at the end of the hallway where the kitchen begins. I stared into the darkness, and then I saw movement. Just a shift, a shadow reshaping itself, like someone leaning slowly to get a better look down the hall. My throat went tight. I pressed my hand over my mouth. In that moment, I finally understood a hard truth. If someone was in my house, the worst thing I could do was make noise. I backed away from the couch, heel to toe so the floor wouldn't creak. My living room opens into a small entryway, and beyond that is the short hall leading to the bedrooms. The bedrooms were safer. The back of the house, farther from the kitchen. I moved like I was walking through water, slow and controlled. Every breath felt like it might betray me. I tried not to look away from that hallway, but I had to. I turned my head toward the entryway and took one more careful step, and then I heard the kitchen drawer, the silverware drawer. It slid open with a long, smooth sound. Then it stopped. Then softly, the sound of metal shifting, utensils, being moved around. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might throw up. That wasn't a confused animal. That was someone searching, someone deciding what to take, or worse, what to use. My phone screen brightened as my finger tapped it. Too bright. A lighthouse in the darkness. I turned the screen down to the lowest brightness, my hands trembling so hard I almost dropped it. I quietly opened the keypad and typed a 9-1. A floorboard creaked behind me. Not in the hallway. Behind me. In the living room. I froze. My blood turned to ice. Because that meant one thing. The person in my house wasn't in the kitchen anymore. They were already past the hallway. Already in the room with me. And I hadn't even heard them move. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. My body locked up like if I moved, the world would snap into something worse. The creak came again. Closer. A careful step. The kind of step someone takes when they know they're not alone. My brain screamed at me to run, but running felt impossible. Running would be loud. Running would announce exactly where I was. So I did the only thing I could think to do. I sank behind the couch, using it as cover, and brought the phone close to my face like it was a secret. I hit call. It rang once, twice. Each ring sounded like a siren in the silence. Then the operator picked up. 911, what's your emergency? I whispered, barely moving my lips. Someone is in my house. Are you in a safe place? No. What is your address? I gave it to her in a shaky whisper, praying my voice wouldn't carry. My ears were straining so hard they hurt. I was listening for breath, footsteps, any sign that the person knew I was there. The operator's voice stayed calm, too calm, like she'd heard this 1,000 times. Okay, officers are on the way. Do you see the intruder? No, I heard them. I think they were in the living room. Can you get to a locked room? My eyes flicked toward the hallway to the bedrooms. It was dark, but the bedroom at the end had a lock. The closet inside was even better. But to get there, I'd have to move. I'd have to leave the couch. I'd have to cross the open space of the living room. And I didn't know where the intruder was standing. Then softly I heard something that made my skin crawl. A faint exhale. Close. On the other side of the couch. Like someone leaning down, like someone listening. The operator kept talking, but her words blurred. I held my breath. My hand pressed hard against my mouth. I could feel the vibration of my own heartbeat in my fingertips. A shape shifted in the dim light. Not a clear figure. Just a darkness that didn't belong. My mind tried to convince itself it was a trick of the shadows, but then I saw it. A hand, resting on the top edge of the couch. Fingers long and pale, gripping the fabric. Not moving. Just there, like it had been waiting. I almost made a sound. I almost gasped. The hand tightened. The couch cushion dipped slightly. The person was leaning. They were looking over, trying to see me. I didn't think anymore. I moved. I slid out from behind the couch and sprinted into the hallway, feet barely touching the floor as if I could float. The operator's voice flared in my ear. Ma'am, sir, are you still there? Are you safe? I didn't answer. I couldn't. Behind me, the intruder moved too. A heavy step, fast, a sudden shift from quiet stalking to pursuit. I ran down the hall and into my bedroom, slamming the door behind me so hard the frame rattled. I flicked the lock without even looking. My chest was on fire. My lungs were begging. I sprinted to the closet. I yanked it open and crawled inside, dragging clothes in front of me like camouflage. The space smelled like dust and old fabric softener. My knees hit a shoebox. I froze, listening. The operator was still on the line, her voice now urgent. I need you to stay quiet. Officers are minutes away. Do you have a weapon? I didn't. Nothing but a phone and shaking hands. Then in the bedroom outside the closet, I heard the doorknob jiggle. Once, twice, then a pause. Then a soft, slow scrape, like metal brushing metal. Something being slid into the doorframe. A credit card? A tool? The lock clicked. The door to my bedroom opened. I pressed myself deeper into the closet, my face buried in coats. Footsteps entered, slow again, calm. The intruder had stopped rushing, like they were enjoying this. The door closed behind them, and then silence, a long silence. The kind that means someone is standing very still, listening for a breath, a sniffle, a heartbeat. The operator whispered through my phone speaker. They're in the room with you, aren't they? I didn't answer, but my silence was an answer. The intruder started moving again, very slowly, like they were examining everything in my bedroom as if they owned it. A drawer slid open, clothes shifted, a soft thud as something was set down on the floor. Then another drawer, Another pause. He, because at this point my brain had decided it was a man, moved with intention, not frantic, not sloppy, like he'd done this before, like he knew exactly what he wanted. I tried not to breathe. The operator stayed on the line, but I turned my phone volume down until it was barely audible. I held it against my chest, feeling the tiny vibrations when she spoke. I need you to tell me if you hear him leave the room. I couldn't. My throat was locked tight. My mouth was dry. I heard the intruder step closer to the closet. One step, then another. My stomach clenched as if my body was bracing for impact. He stopped, right in front of the closet door. I could see a thin line of light under the closet and his shadow cut across it. He stood there for a long moment, completely still. Then softly he spoke. Not loud, not angry, just casual. I know you're here. My entire body went numb. The operator's voice flickered through the phone. Did he say something? I didn't answer. The intruder breathed out a slow laugh. Barely a laugh, more like a sigh. Then he walked away. For half a second, relief hit me so hard I almost cried. Then I heard him drag something across the room. A chair. He pulled it, scraped it across the floor. Then he set it down right in front of the closet. My blood ran cold all over again. He was setting up. He was making this comfortable. He sat down. The chair creaked with his weight. And then he did nothing. He just waited. Minutes passed. I don't know how many. 2, 5, 10. Time stopped working. My legs burned from crouching. My back ached. Sweat cooled along my spine. I wanted to move, but I was terrified that the smallest rustle would give me away. My phone felt slick in my hand. The operator whispered, "Officers are in the area. I need you to stay quiet. Can you hear sirens?" Not yet. The intruder shifted in the chair, and I heard something else. A soft clicking sound, like a pen clicking, or something being tapped against his palm. The sound repeated, steady and patient, like a metronome. Click, click, click. Then he spoke again, quiet as a secret. "I can wait." My eyes burned with tears. He knew. Or he was guessing with frightening confidence. Then suddenly, the clicking stopped. The chair creaked as he stood up. Footsteps approached the closet again. He leaned close. So close I could almost smell him through the crack. Something sour like sweat and cold air. His voice dropped even lower. "Did you call someone?" He was listening for the phone, listening for the operator, listening for the tiniest hint of a response. I clamped my hand over the phone, pressing it into my chest until it hurt. The intruder reached for the closet door. The knob turned, slow. The closet door opened a few inches. A sliver of the bedroom light cut into the darkness, illuminating hanging clothes and dust floating like tiny ghosts. I squeezed my eyes shut. I braced for the moment his hand would push the coats aside and find me, folded into myself like a hiding child. But instead, he didn't open it more. He just held it there and breathed, like he was enjoying the fear. Then he whispered, so softly I barely heard it. "You're right there." My stomach dropped. And then he closed the closet door again, gently, quietly, as if he was being polite. He stepped back. Then with the same calm voice, he said, "I'm going to count." A pause. 10. My body began shaking uncontrollably. 9. I pressed my forehead into a jacket sleeve, trying to stop the trembling. 8. I heard the operator's voice, barely a breath. "Police are 2 minutes out. Stay where you are." 7. The intruder's voice was steady, smooth. 6. My vision blurred from tears. 5. I realized something then that made my skin crawl even worse. He wasn't counting to find me. He already knew where I was. He was counting so I'd imagine what he would do when he opened the door again. 4. 3. The house felt too small. The air felt too thin. 2. And then a distant sound, a siren, faint at first, like a dream, then louder. The intruder stopped counting. The silence snapped back into place, and in that silence I heard him breathe out something like disappointment. The siren grew louder, and for the first time in what felt like forever, hope crept into my chest. But it wasn't relief, not yet, because the intruder didn't run. He didn't panic. He didn't sprint out of the room like someone who just got caught. He stood there, listening, like he was deciding something. I heard him take one slow step away from the closet, then another. Then he stopped again, and I could tell he was near my bedroom window. The siren outside dipped and rose as a police car moved down the street. Then the intruder whispered, almost to himself, "They're early." My breath caught. Early? Like he had planned for this, like he was on a schedule. Then he turned back toward the closet. The floor creaked beneath his weight. And then I heard the most terrifying sound of the entire night. He started laughing, not loud, not manic, a soft laugh like he was amused by how helpless I was. He walked to the door of my bedroom and opened it. I heard him step into the hallway. The operator's voice, is still barely audible, said, "They're outside. Stay hidden until an officer confirms it's safe." I wanted to scream yes. I wanted to say, "Please hurry," but I stayed silent. Then I heard him moving through the house again. He didn't run out the back. He didn't bolt out the front. He moved room to room, like he was trying to find a better exit, or like he was checking to see if there was someone else inside. Then I heard him in the living room, and something heavy scraped across the floor. Furniture, a chair, a table. He was moving things, and that realization chilled me. He wasn't only trying to escape. He was setting up obstacles to slow the police down. The sirens outside grew closer, more than one now, at least 2 cars. Lights flashed through the slats of my closet door, painting the inside with red-blue pulses like a heartbeat. A loud voice boomed from outside. "Police! Come out of the house!" The intruder didn't answer. Instead, I heard him do something in the living room, something metallic, something fast. A click, then another click. I didn't know what it was, but my mind imagined every worst-case scenario. Then I heard the back door open and close. The sirens outside shifted, like officers repositioning. I thought he ran out, but then, directly above me, in the attic, a footstep. My eyes snapped open. No, 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 no. The attic access was in the hallway ceiling. If he went up there, he could move across the house unseen, listening, waiting, and dropping down when it was quiet. My hand shook so hard I almost dropped my phone. I pressed it tighter. The operator whispered, "Officers are entering. Stay hidden." Then the sound of the front door being kicked in. A crash. Shouts. "Clear! Show me your hands!" Heavy boots moved through the house. My heart slammed so hard I thought it would make noise. The police moved methodically. I could hear them calling out rooms, doors opening, cabinets. But then, a sudden scream of static from a radio, a shout from an officer. "Attic access! Watch the attic!" My blood went ice cold. The intruder was still here. The attic creaked above me again. Then, a slow shifting sound, like someone crawling. The officers shouted again. "Come out now!" Silence. Then a loud bang. A gunshot? A door slam? I couldn't tell. I pressed my face into a coat to stop myself from sobbing. More shouting. Footsteps pounding. Then the attic access door dropped open with a heavy thud. Something fell. A body? A bag. The officers shouted commands over each other. I couldn't see anything from inside the closet, but I could hear the chaos moving down the hall toward my bedroom. Then suddenly, my bedroom door flew open. A flashlight beam cut across the room. A voice shouted, "Police! If you're in here, make yourself known." The operator whispered in my ear, "That's them. Speak." My voice came out as a rasp. I'm in the closet. Stay where you are, the officer said, calmer now. I'm coming. Footsteps approached. The closet door opened. Light poured in, blinding me. An officer's face appeared, focused and serious, his eyes scanning me like he was making sure I was real. You're safe, he said. I tried to stand. My legs trembled so badly I almost collapsed. He steadied me with one hand, and as he guided me out of the room, I saw it. In the hallway ceiling, the attic hatch hung open, and beneath it on the floor was a backpack, open, with tools spilling out, zip ties, duct tape, and a small flashlight still blinking, like a heartbeat. The officer's voice dropped low. He was up there waiting. I swallowed hard. Did you catch him? The officer's eyes shifted away for just a second. Not yet. They led me outside into the cold night air, wrapped in flashing lights and shouted radio codes. I stood barefoot on my front lawn, my whole body shivering, but not just from the cold. My mind was still inside that closet, still listening, still imagining the door opening wider. An officer asked me questions, basic questions. My name, if I lived alone, if I saw the intruder's face. I told them I only saw a sliver, pale skin, a blank expression, a voice that sounded calm and certain. They exchanged looks when I mentioned the counting. One officer said, "He does that." I stared at him. "What do you mean?" The officer didn't answer at first. He looked toward my house like he didn't want the words to exist. Then he said, "We've had calls in the area. Similar pattern." My throat went tight. "Calls like this?" He nodded. "Break-ins, homeowners hiding, intruder doesn't rush, likes to make it personal." I felt sick. Did he hurt anyone? The officer hesitated, and that hesitation told me enough. I turned my face away, staring at the street, trying to focus on the normal things. The pavement, the streetlights, the neighbor's fence, anything to keep my mind from going back inside. Officers moved in and out of my house. One came out carrying the backpack in an evidence bag. Another carried a small crowbar. Then one of them came out holding something that made my stomach twist. A set of keys. My keys. They had been taken from the bowl by the front door. The officer said, "He gathered these." "Why?" My voice sounded distant. The officer didn't sugarcoat it. "Sometimes they take keys so they can come back." I felt my knees go weak. I hadn't even thought about later. I had been focused on surviving the moment. But now the moment was over, and the reality stretched forward, a long, dark hallway of possibilities. They walked me inside again, with an officer beside me, and told me to grab essentials, phone charger, wallet, shoes, anything I needed if I wasn't staying here tonight. I went to my bedroom, and the sight of it made me dizzy. The drawers were open, clothes pulled out. My bedspread messed up like someone had sat on it. The chair that had been in front of the closet was now tipped over. I stared at the closet door. It was closed now, but it didn't look the same as it had earlier. It looked like a threat. An officer noticed me staring and said, "You okay?" I forced a nod. I stepped closer to the closet, like I needed proof it was just a closet again. I reached for the doorknob. My hand shook. I opened it. Inside, my jackets hung as normal, but the way they were disturbed told a story. Some were pushed aside. One was pulled forward, like someone had reached in. My stomach rolled. I looked down at the closet floor, and that's when I saw it. A small black object tucked behind a shoebox. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. Then my brain caught up. It was a phone, not mine. A cheap, old-looking phone with the screen dark and smudged. I backed away so fast I hit the dresser. "Officer!" He stepped closer, flashlight trained on it. He didn't touch it. He just stared. Then his jaw tightened. "That's not good." "What is it?" I whispered. He looked at me carefully, like he was choosing his words. "Sometimes they leave these behind to listen, or they use them to record, or..." He didn't finish, but I knew what he meant. "Or they use them to watch. A wave of panic hit me so hard my vision tunneled. The officer guided me out of the room. "We'll take it. You did the right thing hiding. You did everything right." I shook my head because it didn't feel right. It felt like luck, like the cops arrived seconds before something terrible happened. I grabbed a bag of clothes and my charger and followed the officer back through the hall. As we passed the attic hatch, I stared up at it. It was shut now, but the ceiling around it looked slightly scuffed, like someone had dragged themselves through. I stopped walking. My voice came out small. "Why didn't he just run when the police came?" The officer's expression hardened. "Some people like the control more than they like the theft." I swallowed. "So what now?" He looked at me and said something I will never forget. "Now you don't stay here alone tonight, and tomorrow we change every lock in this house." I nodded. We stepped outside again, and the cold night hit me like a slap. I was walking toward the police car when I heard it. A tiny sound. From inside my house. Not from the attic, not from the hallway, from the living room. A soft click, like a pen. Click, click, click. The exact same sound I heard in my bedroom. My stomach dropped. I turned to the officer. "Did you hear that?" He listened. His face changed instantly. He grabbed his radio. "Unit inside, confirm status. I'm hearing movement." My heart slammed, because the only reason I would hear that sound again is if the intruder never left. Everything moved fast after that. The officer pushed me behind him, putting his body between me and the house. He shouted into the radio again, "Confirm! Confirm! I'm hearing movement in the living room." Inside, footsteps, fast now, pounded across the floor. A police flashlight beam flickered through the front window. Then I heard a shout from inside. "Contact!" A crash. A voice yelling, "Drop it!" Another crash. My entire body froze, like my nervous system couldn't process any more fear. Then the front door flew open. An officer stepped out, breathing hard. Behind him, another officer dragged someone forward. The intruder. He wasn't tall like my imagination had made him. He was average height, thin, wearing a dark hoodie and gloves. His head was slightly down, but as they pulled him out, he turned his face toward me, and I saw his expression. Not anger, not panic, a calm, blank stare, like I was something he owned. One officer said, "He was in the living room closet." I blinked. "Living room closet?" The officer nodded. We cleared rooms, but he tucked himself into a tight spot behind a coat rack. He stayed quiet, waited. Waited, even after police entered, even after flashlights swept through my house. He waited. That meant one thing. He wasn't trying to escape. He was trying to outlast them. The officers pushed him toward the car. As they did, he spoke. Quiet, but loud enough for me to hear. "You were quiet," he said, almost like a compliment. My blood ran cold. An officer snapped, "Don't talk." But the intruder didn't stop. He looked straight at me. "I almost opened it," he said. I felt my stomach drop through the ground. Almost opened it. The closet, the final door. The officer shoved him into the back of the police car and slammed it shut. I stood there shaking, tears spilling out of my eyes without permission. An officer approached gently. "You're safe now," he said, but his tone didn't sound certain. It sounded like he wished he could guarantee it. I swallowed hard. Why did he count? The officer hesitated. Then he said, "Because he wanted you to imagine what came next." The wind blew across my yard, and I suddenly remembered the feeling of the closet door opening a crack, the way he paused, the way he breathed like he was enjoying it. I looked at my house. It didn't look like safety anymore. It looked like a place where something terrible almost happened. The officer told me they'd found the back door forced open with a tool. They told me they'd found the pile of items on the kitchen table. They told me they'd found evidence that this wasn't random, that the intruder had been watching houses, learning routines, learning when people were alone, learning who would hide. I asked the question I didn't want the answer to. How long do you think he was watching me? The officer's jaw tightened. "We can't say yet." But then another officer walked up with something in his hand, a small piece of paper. He handed it to the first officer, who looked at it and then looked at me. "Do you have a mailbox out front?" he asked. I nodded. He held the paper carefully like it was contaminated. "It was in his pocket," he said. "It's a note." My throat went tight. "A note?" He didn't hand it to me. He just read it, and the words made my blood run colder than it ever had before. "Friday, lights off by 11, alone." I felt dizzy, because that wasn't a guess. That was a schedule. That was observation. That was someone who had been outside my house, watching, waiting, writing down details like I was a target. The officer said, "He didn't pick your house at random." I couldn't speak. My mind flashed through the last few weeks, moments that seemed normal at the time. A car parked down the street too long, a person in the grocery store aisle who looked away too quickly, a knock at the door on a day I wasn't expecting anyone. I had brushed it all off. I had told myself I was being paranoid, but I wasn't paranoid. I was unprepared. That night, I didn't sleep in my house. I didn't even go back inside after they finished. I left with a bag of clothes and the officer's instructions ringing in my ears. Change the locks. Get cameras. Tell your neighbors. Don't be alone for a while. I stayed with a friend, but even then, every little sound felt like footsteps. Every creak sounded like a door opening. I kept seeing that pale sliver of a face through my hanging jackets. The next morning, when the sun came up, I went back with 2 friends and a locksmith. The house looked normal in daylight. But when I stepped into my bedroom, my body reacted like it remembered. My stomach clenched. My chest tightened. The closet was still there. I forced myself to open it again, and I noticed something I hadn't noticed the night before. On the inside edge of the closet door, near the latch, a faint mark, a scratch, like someone had dragged something sharp along it, like a tally. 1 line, 2 lines, 3. My breath caught. It wasn't random damage. It looked intentional. I stared at it, and suddenly the intruder's voice replayed in my mind. "I'm going to count." The scratch marks weren't tallies from the police. They weren't from me. They were from him. A ritual, a habit, a way of marking the moment. My friend asked, "You okay?" I turned away from the closet so he wouldn't see my face. "Yeah," I lied, because the truth was, I wasn't okay. I was alive. But I had learned something that night that I can't unlearn. When you're home alone, safety isn't a feeling. It's a door, a lock, a habit. And sometimes it's a closet door that almost opens all the way.